How's it going, YouTube? Chrono here, back with another ranked review session. I'm jumping right into the games with this one, and today we're only going to be looking at the new ST29 Luffy matchup. This week it felt like every third opponent I played was on this deck, and I've been hearing people around Twitch and YouTube calling it top 3 for the format, so I figured I'd focus on what to do against this guy for this video. Before this week, I just had a vague idea that he's a 6 life leader with a ton of triggers to watch out for, but his win conditions and overall game plan weren't exactly clear to me. I think I've got a much better grasp on how to play into it now after getting whooped by it a few times, and so I thought I'd share what I learned with you all. With that being said, I did win the die roll and got to choose to go second, plus I opened really well with triple Bonnie this game, which is not something you're normally going to be able to do, so I felt pretty good after this first game going into this deck, but obviously you can't expect to always open triple Bonnie and win the die roll, so, this first game I really should have taken more with a grain of salt, but when I started out the session of ranked, I was thinking to myself, hey, this Luffy deck's not so bad to play against. I will go ahead and go through the rest of this game, though, but we're sitting in a very good position. Healthy hand size, a lot of life left. Our opponent got a trigger body out of their second life, so they do have 2 swings here, but honestly, at 7 Dawn, they're not going to be able to play too threatening of a body. It's usually either Kuma or Nico Robin, and neither of those are that worrisome, especially since my 2 bodies are much better than his 2 on the board right now. Basically, they're both vanilla 5Ks, meanwhile I've got 2 6Ks, and one of them freezes one of his guys. And so, I didn't really want to pitch any of my 1K counter cards, which, now looking back, I probably should have, just because the way that Luffy ends up winning the game is through unblockable attacks while you have 0 life remaining, and he's good at burning those last couple of life. So, as the carrot player, what I should be doing here is conserving my counter power where I can. Like, I could have just given up a 1K instead. Fortunately, thanks to the 2 Bonnies that have been able to stick around for the last couple turns, we're still very healthy on hand size again, and of course we do have some blockers in play, which helps mitigate the threat. As long as you have a blocker in play and they've only got a couple swings, they can go unblockable 14 if you have no life. It's just, if you can counter out of that, go to 15, then there's no way they're going to win with that. And so, again, I just have to accumulate that counter. And looking at it right now, I've already got my Ella Claw, which is +3, and 2 2Ks. Already that's at 12, and so just 3K more, which I do currently have in 1Ks right now. But again, we are probably going to have to give up some counter power, defend our bodies, or our last remaining health. And we should be safe, though, against an unblockable 14. What's really nice, additionally, about this carrot deck is that we have so much capability to stun their offense, especially on their big bodies with our La Beppo, which unfortunately I don't have any in my hand right now. Now, I did pick up another counter event here. This is actually one of the cards I've been going back and forth taking in and out of my deck, is this Dead Man's Game. It's one of the only things that I'm not 100% satisfied with out of this deck, and now here I do just end up taking the counter power because I wouldn't be able to play the La Beppo anyway. I haven't been able to get a Zoe on the board yet, which is a little unfortunate, but what can you do? I wasn't going to attack with that Law anyway, which is why I was comfortable swinging into that Perona. I will just be playing over my Bonnie, pitching one of these Zoes, getting some Dawn back. Then I can play the other Zoe just so that next turn I will have some extra Dawn to play with, but I'll still be able to hold up 2 blockers, which is what I've decided to do here, just to make sure that I don't die to any sort of shenanigans. I'm thinking right now, if my opponent swings into my board, I'll just defend it with my hand and then go for game on the next turn. Instead, he kind of surprised me by going for my leader, so I just go ahead and give him 1 event, since I got 2 of them anyway. Now that I have Zoe in play, if I ever do happen into another La Beppo, which is not going to happen because I just sent 3 to the bottom of my deck, but if it were to, you could still hold up 1 Dawn, but you can't hold up 2 with it. Now, my opponent does play a Gecko Moria, and that means he's either going to heal or resurrect this Perona to stun one of my characters, probably my carrot, just because it is the only mink that I have on board, so it's the only one that I could restand with the 8 cost carrot, which I do have in hand. So he does decide to do that, mitigate some of my attacks, and chooses not to swing with any of his board just to keep up a large amount of attackers for his next turn. And you can see here me giving way too much respect to this deck. I really am just worried, since it's a yellow deck and I don't exactly know what triggers they've got, if they end up getting something like a Rayleigh pop my blocker, or possibly just a beige, or some way to stop one or two of my attacks. I might not be able to actually end the game, even though I did have 5 attacks and he only had 4 hits before he was going to be at a loss. And so instead I just swing a couple times, take a couple life, and block her up again, and then pass with a bunch of counter power in hands just to make sure that I don't lose. But honestly, I probably should have just gone for it. If I was in the big tournament looking at this game state, I probably would have done the same thing, just because I really don't want to get beiged at or 0 cost event last life into a beige or something, and then you just lose from there because you didn't leave any blockers up. But from here, now I'm willing to give up my whole hand to defend my board, and I will 100% be pushing for game on the next turn. And my opponent understands he's not going to be able to break this defense, 3 blockers plus a ton of cards in hand, so of course he's going to go for something like heal and leave up some Dawn for counter events if he does have them. Now that I'm more familiar with the deck, they do play quite a few of them. Either, of course, the unblockable event, that's a +3, but some of them also do have the 1 cost event that is a +2 to the leader, and then -2k on a character or opposing leader. And so he does just play another Gecko Moria, heals again, and this one is going to bring out a Perona when it triggers to, stop another one of my attacks. He does give me a 2k, 1k for my 7k attack, but I, of course, have the carrot still in hand, so this 5-cost carrot can actually restand an attack again. So I have a ton of attacks remaining. There's just no way that our opponent is going to be able to get out of this one, no matter what kind of triggers that he ends up with. It would have to be something ridiculous like 0-cost spell and a 0-cost spell and a 0-cost spell. Instead, he just gets a blocker, which we can, of course, tap with Carrot Leader effect, and that's going to be the end of the game. Looking at the next game, though, I lose the die roll. Not a great start for me, but I've got a decent hand here, and so I do keep with no mulligan. I've got a Supernova Searcher plus a Searcher for the Zoe stage. And so, a little bit scary just because I really do need the Supernova Searcher to hit another Searcher, and I would very prefer for this carrot to have hit the Zoe. Of course, insult to injury, the 8th card that was on the top of my deck was the Zoe, so if I just played any other Searcher first, it would have hit. Oh well, it does happen. I will simply need to... and I actually top deck another carrot, and of course, that one's also going to whiff on the Zoe. That was a very risky play that I just did. All in one instant, I have now put myself behind a 6k body on the board, and additionally, my opponent is going to be able to defend this with 3 cards out of their hand. I mean, it's a small comfort that it did take 3 cards, but now I've got no 2ks, so if he just goes something like swing 6, which he just did, into swing 7, I have to take both, and boy, are we not in a happy spot right now, because I also don't have a Law in hand, nor do I have a Supernova Searcher because Kid Killer didn't find one, and so I have no way to get to Law. Instead, I will just have to hard play this Zoe, play out a carrot, and be miserable about it. Especially seeing that he has a kid as well, like, oh my goodness. If he has a Bonnie to follow up, then this game is just about over. We're really seeing here just how deadly this Luffy leader really can be. Now, I do have, at the very least, this Law Beppo for next turn, but of course I lost the die roll, so I'm not going to be able to play it for a whole turn. So from here, I have to just hope that, a blocker plus another carrot is going to see me through to another turn. And maybe it will, maybe it won't. I even go through the extra measure of grabbing a 2k with this wand to spend my last Dawn. I mean, maybe a mistake because this last life could have been an event card. So now I won't be able to cast it if it is. Well, I guess that's not entirely true. I do, after all, still have Kid Killer to give me back a Dawn. In any event, my opponent goes for another 9k, and looking back at this, I really should just give the 3 cards. I'm stubborn though, and for whatever reason think I'm going to get a ton of counter power out of this life in my top deck, which I don't. And so now I'm staring down a very precarious situation where I'm going to have to go for either blockering up with the double Bonnies that I have in hand and hope that I just draw into counter power using that to get up to a 14k unblockable, or I can bluff and go for a Law Beppo play, hold up a Dawn, and pretend that I have the counter power in hand, and he would be a fool to simply go for 17k with Kuma. I opt to go for the Law Beppo just because in my head I'm thinking this is my best chance of actually winning the game, because even if he, doesn't have the unblockable event and has to chew through my blockers first, I'm giving up 2 blockers. That's a lot of attacks out of me, and I'm not going to be able to hold back this kid plus double Kikunojo forever. Well, the Kikunojos can be tapped, but the point is he's going to have multiple swings, then I won't have my blockers anymore, and I will have given up some counter power as well probably, and from there I'm just not going to be able to win on the next turn. So I'm just thinking to myself, hey, let's try to bluff it, make him use his Dawn to heal with a Kuma or something of the like, or maybe put up a blocker or 2, and then hold up some Dawn for counter events, and then maybe we can go for game with our Carrots and Law Beppo, even though he would, if he did heal, have 4 hits before he loses, and I only have 4 real swings. Maybe I can top deck into a 8-drop Carrot and give myself some extra swings, and maybe we can win from there. So my opponent in any event does just go for the 14 to end it, and I don't have enough counter power, and I lose. Oh well. I still think that was probably my best chance from the situation I found myself in. And so we're going to start off another game here where I once again lost the die roll. And this is the guy, if you'll recall, that was playing the Thriller Bark package. And so this was actually the only guy I saw playing that stuff, which, kind of interesting. I'm not sure if it's the best build for this deck, but it seemed pretty good while he was playing it, and maybe that's just because that Perona is so good into my 5-drop Carrots, preventing them from, getting their effect each turn. From here, though, we're going to run normal game plan of establish Zoe, establish Searchers, look for a Law for our next turn. We do have a Kid Killer, which I don't want to give up. It's just so that I will be able to search for the Law, bounce back this 2k, put in the Carrot, freeze one of his guys, and then we're just going to try to establish a big board of 6ks, and then push, or rather chew through all of his life slowly. And so, of course, his game plan, he just wants to burn my life out. He's going to go for a Nico Robin this turn. I wouldn't be surprised to see a Kid come down the turn after that, and then if he's lucky, maybe he'll have a Bonnie to end the game with. But for my part, we got 3 6Ks in play. We freeze his rested character, and we're going to have a lot of pressure for next turn. My hand size is not the best, but it's not the worst either. I mean, 5 cards left. I can just go ahead and defend with another card, and there's the Kid. So I'm down to just 2 life. I will be able to, again, remove one of his swings guaranteed. And in fact, I've got this other Carrot as well in my hand, but here's where I'm really making a fatal error of thinking that if I simply freeze 2 of his attacks on board using this Carrot restand, he's not going to be able to go for game since I have 2 life. Because at this point in my games, I haven't played into a Luffy player that has played a Bonnie against me. So it just slips my mind that card even exists. If I just leave one of my blockers up, I'm 100% alive, and then maybe I can try going for game on the next turn since I have the second 8-cost Carrot in hand to really push. But what ends up happening here is he just goes 6, forces a 2k out, goes 9, I take, and then he just pushes with 10 with Bonnie, and I lose the game. So not ideal, but that's what ends up happening. Now in this next game, though, I do win the die roll. Choose to go second. I've got a decent start here, a couple Supernova Searchers, but I am cut off from Minx, which is, a bit of a problem only because I won't be able to use Leader Effect, but I have a small stopgap. Again, I'll just use this Scratch Mana Poo. Not the end of the world, and additionally, since I have the Kid Killer, I get to push the Lilith off with that attacker, and it allows me to attack his leader. And then I'll be able to establish this Jewelry Bonnie. Now, unfortunately for me, he gets a Sanji out of it. Fortunately for me, though, I get another Jewelry Bonnie. So, you know, you got your good with your bad. Nothing's ever going to be perfect, and you do have to go win the game eventually, so I don't think that attacking into this leader is as dubious as it can be into specifically Boa. Boa, I know that I've said before, you know, you want to not attack the first couple of turns at the very least, just to allow yourself some time to build your own board up, but this deck, you know, one, their bodies aren't as scary, and you can attack into them. Two, they don't have as many triggers, so, you know, you have less of a chance that you just get unlucky and they get one. I think Boa has something like a 40% chance whenever you attack into it, they get a trigger, whereas this deck, it feels like it's more like a 15%. I don't actually know what their ratios are, but more of their triggers are like removal effects or like that Nico Robin blocker is a really small body that I don't really care about if they were to put it into play. In any event, though, the game plan remains the same. We're just going to stun his bodies and put out as many 6k characters as I can, force him to attack into my Bonnie blockers. I guess they're not blockers, they're pseudo blockers, because if he doesn't clear them, then I'll get to search for additional cards every single turn. I even got to freeze one of his Dawn, which frees me up from the potential for a Jewelry Bonnie. And here I'm going to learn from my mistakes and leave up a blocker, is what I would have said if I learned from my mistake in the last game and left up a blocker. But instead, here comes the Jewelry Bonnie for an 11k, and wouldn't you know it, my last life was not a 1k counter power, it was a 0k, and I lose the game. Oh well. So, you know, we've thrown 2 games now due to not holding up a blocker in the final turn. There's no way I will do that again, I say to myself, watching myself play these back. And I don't think that I do, actually. I think I learned my lesson, and that's a lesson to pass on to all of you aspiring Carrot players. Leave up a blocker against this deck in the last turn just because of the Bonnie. I don't know why it took me 2 games to figure that out, but hey, better late than never. In any event, for this game, we don't have Supernova Searchers. We only have our Minks. And again, our opponent triggers their first life. So not amazing of a start for us, but what is nice is that he doesn't have anything or like a Sanji to play for his 4-Dawn turn. So from here, I can at the very least establish a carrot and clear out his body or freeze it. You know, whether he lets it go or not is not a big deal to me. We're always going to be playing this carrot just because we don't have anything else to do. But I don't want to trigger another trigger body out of his life, so that's why I didn't attack his leader. Now, he does have the Nico Robin, and so I will need to start defending my life some more. This is where Elaclaw does end up coming up, is that I get to freeze his Nico Robin, who is a 6 cost. So from here, I can put the Law into play, bounce back this Searcher, and of course, unfortunately, it's another trigger body. But we do have to go win the game eventually, as I always say. So let's just go ahead and grab back this 2k, get another carrot into play, and threaten a 2-turn lethal clock. Again, I'm not going to be able to clear him on this next turn, but hopefully on the turn afterward, if I live that long, I should be able to win. Now, for his part, he does just play a removal Nami and will likely just swing a couple attacks at my life. I'm going to take one and then block the other with this Law and give him a 2k if he swings the 7, which I'm expecting him to, and we'll just go ahead and proceed from there. In fact, I'm actually, like, I guess I'm thinking about taking the damage just because, you know, Jewelry Bonnie would force me to take the life anyway, but think better of it. Let's just go ahead and clear some of his attacks out. I could even use this carrot here in my hand, the 8 cost, to restand and start to go at his leader, but I think that what I'm going to do, and what is a little bit better, is using this Law in my hand to put this Jewelry Bonnie into play and freeze his body and hold up a blocker. That way we will have everything that we want in play, you know, 4 6k attackers for the next turn, a blocker held up in case he has the Jewelry Bonnie. We still have a life left, so we're not going to get hit by the unblockable attack. What I'm really expecting to happen, though, is that he plays the Jewelry Bonnie, clears out my blocker with it, and forces a 2k out with his leader attack. Instead, he goes for my Jewelry Bonnie, which, you know what? I've gotten my use out of her. And yeah, here comes the Jewelry Bonnie. Goes for my leader with the 10k. I'll just give him my blocker. I need to get out of... Oh, he actually goes for the carrot, which is very interesting. By the way, if you're ever in that situation where you could attack a 6k body or go for game, just go for game. Because if that attack were to hit, then I 100% would lose, and it's more difficult for me to defend the leader. Anyway, not a big deal though. I give him my blocker in either event because, again, I need to be able to beat the 14k unblockable attack. And to that end, I'm looking at my hand here and I'm thinking, hey, I've got this La Beppo, I can go to 7, and then I have exactly enough to go to 14 in hand, which is actually not enough to get out of the 14k swing. So I'm not sure why I did that again. Mistakes are being made here, and I'm watching them happen in real time. Unfortunate, I have just enough to lose. So 14k to 14k, I'm losing that game. I should have just dug through more cards, I think. And, this is also one of the reasons why I was going back and forth on having or not having that Dead Man's Game card. Because obviously it is additional counter power, but it's also kind of unfortunate that it's unsearchable. And so in order to mitigate that, as well as keep more additional low-cost minks in my rotation, I was... oh my gosh, this game opens up perfectly. I have Zoe in play, I have 3 Bonnies. I got to win the die roll, I'm going second. Yeah, I would be very surprised if I managed to find a way to lose this game. No promises. I've managed to do it before, it looks like, but this game is looking very good. And look at that, I just whiffed on a Bonnie search. So, was there a Dead Man's Game in there? I couldn't tell, but if there was, hey, maybe that's one of the reasons why I'm not so hot on that card right now. Especially since the carrot, the 8-cost carrot, just feels like it kind of does the same thing, but better, as long as you have multiple La Beppos in play, which usually I do in the games where I'm playing the carrot. Or rather, the games that I need to play the carrot, I should say, which is primarily only against Emu anyway. Emu is kind of the only deck that I really need the firepower against. Everything else we just we play 6k one piece, and we just swing with 6ks all day, eat out all their 2ks, and then win the game from there. Here, though, we are almost full up on our board. In fact, we're going to be able to trash this Zoe and start to swing at his leader. And we have a huge board advantage. We are just lacking in the life department, but thanks to the fact that we won the die roll, I will be able to start establishing La Beppos back to back. And he goes for a big body. I guess he's also playing the Thriller Bark stuff like that other guy was. But I will just simply give him a couple of cards, then take this last attack, and it's just going to be La Beppo o'clock while I clear out a couple of these bodies. He, of course, doesn't want to give them for free, but this is just fine to me as well. I don't mind giving a couple of swings for these guys, and then, yeah, we'll just go for the La Beppo, and I'll even throw in my last attack. If he has a Jewelry Bonnie, so be it. It's not the end of the world. And if he doesn't, hey, a couple cards is just a couple cards. I really should have held up a blocker again. I don't know what I'm doing here. In any event, yeah, we'll just go ahead and give him a couple of cards. Obviously, he doesn't have the Jewelry Bonnie. He does eat my last life, though, with a big 13k swing. It happens to be a La Beppo, so I will be able to once again freeze one of his attackers, and we can just pressure his life with the remainder of our cards here. Now, something very important to note is that I do hold up 2 Law blockers, and the reason for that is because I'm worried about a Rayleigh trigger, actually. That is why I'm not going to swing with the other Law. And if I had hit a trigger on that first carrot attack with my leader, I would not have swung the La Beppo because it was back-to-back Rayleigh attacks, and then I am left without a blocker. That being said, I do have enough counter power to go to 16, so I wouldn't lose to a 15k swing. Just like I'm going to be able to counter out of that swing from him there. But from here, it's just a hop, skip, and a jump to lethal, especially since I have the 8-cost carrot in hand, and so we will be able to take that game at least. And here it's the same guy again. Here he goes with another Lilith to start. Again, I did win the die roll, and I've once again opened up several Jewelry Bonnies, so it's already looking very good for me in the start. Especially since I also have the Zoe Searcher. I will just take the first couple of hits, and we'll just see if he gets a trigger out of his first life. He actually counters it instead, and look at that, 2 Zoes go to the bottom of my deck, so that's not fantastic. I'll dig through another 5 though, and don't see any Zoes there, so I think I'm willing to just risk it and go for a carrot on this turn after that, especially since I don't currently have a Mink in play. I won't be able to tap down the Kikunojo otherwise. And so I whiff on the Zoe, don't get to play my Law, and I don't get the Zoe in play. It's unfortunate. It is what it is. We'll just have to give a couple of counter cards out of our hand and try to proceed as normal from there. At the very least, now we are going to be able to go for the very powerful Law and another 5k body or 5 cost body into a Law Beppo to follow that up, and then hopefully we can leverage that tempo swing into a win. And so, well, not only that, I'll have at least a blocker in play so that if our opponent has a Jewelry Bonnie, I'll be able to block the Jewelry Bonnie, just give him like a 1k and a 2k with the rest of our attacks. And it looks like he does go for a 7k at my lead instead. I'll have to defend it, unfortunately, and then, yeah, here comes the kid to burn out my other life. And so Law Beppo is still on the menu here. That is probably the best thing that we're going to do. But I do need to go end the game, not this turn, but the turn after this turn. And I have enough counter power to get out of a Jewelry Bonnie 11k this time. So I'm comfortable to swing everything. I need to go win the game, and that's why I'm swinging it all out. Even if he just dons up his characters and goes, I will also be able to counter out of that. I have plenty of counter power this time, so not scared at all. But I think what he's going to end up doing is just healing. Yeah, he'll just swing at my board. And again, even if he has the Jewelry Bonnie from this position, with just 3 2Ks being as a 7K leader, I do get out of the 11. So that is fine by me to defend this carrot. And if he goes with one more, he will not be able to play Jewelry Bonnie. So ball's in his court. What he wants to do ends up being an 8-cost card. So yeah, it just ends up being a Gecko Moria to heal an additional. And from here now, we just have to hit him 3 times. Potentially, he could freeze one of my attackers. So I have 5 on the board, but really it's probably just going to be 4. That's still an extra attack compared to what we need. And so we are just going to swing 7s for now. And I still even have this Kid Killer on the board as well, which is potentially going to be enough to close out, because I can just don up the Kid Killer, obviously. In any event, he takes the damage, doesn't play a trigger because I'm out of 6k bodies or less that matter if he did trigger that out. And then his last life, it looks like, is also a trigger. He's deciding whether or not he wants to actually take it. It is a Gecko Moria trigger, so he can get any 4-cost body, but of course we can tap down a 4-cost blocker if that's what he plays. And so instead I believe he ends up going with the Sanji Searcher and tries to go get another 2k. Yep, and there it is. And so we are swinging 12. If he does happen to have 4 2ks in hand, he would win. However, looking at his hand, he already had a 9-cost Bonnie in there, so it wasn't enough to pull it all together. Here again, we did win the die roll, and I get to go second. I'll start off with a Kid Killer Searcher, of course, and I've got double carrots, so hopefully in the 14 cards these are going to be able to look at, I will get at least 1 Zoe, and then I can establish my Bonnie as well, tap down his Lilith. He just goes for a 7k swing to guarantee that I'll take the hit, and I do. And so we do whiff on the Zoe, unfortunate. He even defends the Lilith, which ends up being the same as if he had defended his life. And wouldn't you know it, I whiff on those 14 cards, don't get my Zoe in play, and then see, of course, a Zoe in my Bonnie search. So, hey, you know, it happens again. You can't let that, dissuade you from playing the carrot, because just as easily as they whiffed, they could end up hitting. It is very unfortunate as well, though, that I don't get to have, and wouldn't you know it, the next life that I take is also a Zoe. Well, I am probably just going to end up playing that just because I do need to get it into play, and I don't have a law to play this turn either. I could go digging for the law with the Kid Killer, and that may end up being the better play, but I want to get this Zoe in play very badly just because the way that I think in my head, and wouldn't you know it, there is a law there, but what I'm thinking in my head, what I want to do is... well, he's already on his 9-Dawn turn, and yep, there's a Jewelry Bonnie. Now that I know that that card exists in his arsenal, what I want to do is play back-to-back Law Beppos, just to mitigate his swings, and then also allowing me to swing out with everything. And this way I can play a Wanda, use the Zoe to untap the Dawn, and then get a Law Beppo that way, just to drag this game out. And yep, here comes another Jewelry Bonnie. Well, our counterpower is not amazing, but it's not terrible as well. Counting everything out, I do have 16k as my potential with all of the cards in my hand here. And I could even potentially dig through my deck for more with the 5-cost Bonnie blocker. And so what I think I end up doing here is just freezing his Jewelry Bonnie, one of them with the Stun Bonnie, and then playing the other Bonnie to help cycle a couple cards out of my hand, that being this Unwanted Zoe. And after I do that, you know, I have enough Dawn that I should be able to play one for the Wanda, try to dig for another 2k. I whiff on that, but I still have enough counterpower to get out of a 14k unblockable, and then I can just block the 10k with one of my blockers. So here he comes. He's actually going to go a 13. I guess he's trying to live, but in any event, I did have enough to go to 15 as well. So a 14k swing would not have done me in. And from here, we've got 5 attacks to go into his 2 life. So I just need 3 to connect. He's got 6 cards in hand. One of them is likely the +3 event, just because he is holding up a Dawn. And so that's what we're going to be playing around. I'm just going to go 8s into him to force 2 cards at a time. He gives me 2 2Ks. I go another 8. He gives me a 2K, 1K. I guess he thought I swung 7, but looking at his hand, he just didn't have the counter power anyway, even if he did counter properly, so that doesn't end up mattering. Here in another game, though, I finally do lose a die roll. I did have a streak there where I was winning them back-to-back, but here we go. We are going to have to play from going first. Thankfully, though, our Zoe comes online from our carrot. Very convenient for me, as now I can use the rest of my Dawn here to just play a couple more characters. I'm even going to put this Milky into play just as a way to hopefully cheat out a couple of extra 5-cost bodies using the Dawn restanding effect. And so I'm just going to go ahead and play out this Bonnie. And you know what? I don't have a lot else to do in hand. Let's just go 8 into the Kikunojo, take 2 cards out of our opponent's hand, or if he lets us have the Kikunojo, that's fine too. Instead, he gives us 2 2Ks, so I know he doesn't really have any 1Ks in hand, so that's kind of nice. He goes 5K, 6K. I can just give him a 2K character out of my hand. That means he's going to burn my life with the Robin to turn on his Kikunojo, and so at this point I would like to find a law just so that I will be able to get another 6k in play, and I still got 6 Dawn to my name here. I will go ahead and try to clear out the Kikunojo if possible, just because I do want to mitigate the attacks that I'm taking, even though it will mean that he does get to take a card back himself to his life. He does end up defending it with everything that he has, and so from here, what I am likely going to end up doing is using the carrot now to just freeze the Kikunojo, and you know, I did get to leave up 1 Dawn for the counter event, very nice for me. He does have another one though, and so I'll just clear the Nico Robin. There's no way he can defend it with only 3 cards in hand. In fact, I'm happy to take every single card that he wants to give me out of his hand. I will go ahead and play the Wanda, grab a La Beppo, just for follow-up for our next turn. I can go ahead and get the carrot into play here, and you know what? I could clear the Kikunojo, and I think that I will. Now I have 2 blockers in play. I've learned my lesson. No longer will I not have blockers in play, and he's very much telegraphing he's going to have the Bonnie. Bonnie's fine by me. He even doesn't swing, which I would have just given him a block for anyway. I'm going to have to play over one of my characters because I have a full board, and there's no way I'm not playing this La Beppo. So I just need to leave a blocker up so that it can absorb a Jewelry Bonnie swing, and that's really the and even if I didn't have this blocker, if this is a Rayleigh trigger, I'm not going to die either. I have enough counter power, and I should be able to close the game out on the next turn. So not going to be too big of a deal. He does burn out my last life with this Kid Killer, which is probably a smarter play than a Bonnie if he did have one, but he's going to leave up the rest of his Dawn for counter events. I won't be dissuaded, though. This time we are just going to be swinging 7s. I only need 4 of them to connect. He does have a double event, though, so I'm counting it out. I could go 5, 7, 9, 11, which on paper always wins. However, looking at what could end up happening, which is some way to stun one of my characters, some way like a 0-cost event, anything could go wrong. So I'm counting my Dawn, counting my blockers, and I decide, I can just clear out all of his bodies and stun the one that I can't clear, and then, hold up 2 blockers, and as long as he doesn't get the unblockable event, I will win. And he just gave me 2 unblockable events, so it's very unlikely he's going to top deck it. Still, though, maybe I should have gone 5, 7, 9, 11. That does win on paper 100% of the time, as long as there's no weird triggers. Well, here we are, though, going first again into the this Luffy deck. And again, I don't have a low-cost Mink, so I got to make do with the Scratch Mana Poo. Still, though, got the Carrot in hand, and I've got a Jewelry Bonnie on field, so hopefully I can top deck like a Wanda or a Milky or something, just so I'll be able to tap down this Sanji and then get the freeze off with the Carrot. And in fact, I do get a 1-cost Carrot, which whiffs on the Zoe search. I already have the Zoe in play. I was mostly just playing it so that I could tap the Sanji and be able to freeze it with the Carrot in case he doesn't want to give me a block for it. And if he does go ahead and let it go, I can just use this Dawn instead to use Jewelry Bonnie search to try to dig for another Jewelry Bonnie, because if I happen to chain into a bunch of Jewelry Bonnies, it's going to be very advantageous for me. He does end up letting it go, so I'm going to go ahead and dig for my Bonnies, and of course I don't find them. But I do dig for, instead, a Trafalgar Law, which is still going to be very good, because obviously it's going to get me some additional characters into play. And so we'll just go ahead and see if he gets a trigger. If he happened to get like a Sanji or something, I could have tapped it down. And now I'm going to have a bunch of extra Dawn, though, is kind of a problem. I'm going to have 3 extra Dawn and basically nothing to do with it. I could play another Searcher, but I kind of have everything that I want in my hand, which is another Law plus a Carrot in hand. So instead I just pitch the Searcher and go for a 5k into his lead. And thankfully he doesn't trigger again. He was definitely fishing for a trigger. With that many cards in hand, he could have just taken the damage. But here he comes. He's going to go for another Robin, and then probably just swing like 6k and then 7k into me. I'll make that a 5 and then an 8 probably into my body, the way that he's doing this. I would probably defend the character, but because he goes for my life, I actually decided to just go ahead and take. I can go ahead and freeze any body that would pop out of life using leader effect plus the Carrot in hand. So I am just gonna pressure this this Nico Robin that's tapped. He just lets it go on the first hit, so he probably is just wanting to get some triggers out of life to help him clear out the game before I can get to my La Beppo turns, which I am digging for with this Jewelry Bonnie. In fact, I can actually get another search, and I'm going to, since I have 8 Dawn remaining. I can get this Jewelry Bonnie back to my hand and then replay it and do it again just to try to dig for a La Beppo, which unfortunately I don't find, but I do find a bunch of 2Ks, and I've got a counter event, so I'm 100% going to be okay for this turn, even if he has a Jewelry Bonnie 9-drop. Instead, though, he plays a Kid, burns my last life, goes for my Bonnie character, and so I will just go ahead and let him have it. From here, I'm really hoping to top deck a La Beppo, but I do not, and so instead I'm going to be looking for a Freeze Bonnie, which I do find. So, you don't get one, you're probably going to get the other. And the only reason is I just want to keep this Kid tapped down so that I don't have to give him a blocker for that. And I have, again, plenty of counter power. There's no way that I'm going to lose to a 15k swing or even a 14k unblockable, anything like that, as long as I can mitigate his total swing count fairly well. He's going to end up having 3 potential swings, but I have so much counter power in hand, he only has 1 life left. I'm very confident even if he heals, that's going to cost him 2 cards out of hand. He'll have 7 remaining, and then I need 3 swings to connect. I may even be able to buy an additional turn if I were to top deck into a La Beppo on the turn after that, if he doesn't pressure a ton of cards out of my hand, just because it kind of turns off all of his 6k and 5k attackers, since he'll have to allocate Dawn just to attack with them. He's probably instead would rather just go for a 14k unblockable, and with this many 2ks and a counter event in hand, I'm probably just not going to be losing to anything like that anytime soon. And I think my opponent is putting that together in his head as he's deciding what's to do. I'm sure he has a ton of options with 9 cards in hand. You could go for Akuma and then hold up some Dawn and then just pressure with a couple 7k swings. Instead, he starts going for my board, so this is pretty much the ultimate admission of I am just going to try to live another turn, and hopefully my Kid will get to untap and I can try to close out the game from there. He does filter out a Kid from his hand, so he's also getting to dig for additional counter power. He even has a Bonnie here to clear out one of my Bonnie blockers. A Nami, and it does force him to pitch a Bonnie to do so, and then he pitches another one. So again, he's just filtering no counter cards out of his hand. Now, I do end up top decking a La Beppo. I hadn't seen one in quite a few searches, so it was fairly decent odds that I was going to. And if I didn't find one, I was going to have to swing 9 probably to start. Or maybe I just go 7, 7, 7, 9, 9 is actually probably what I should do. But instead, I will just go for a couple of 7k or 6k swings in, and then a 7k with lead, and hold up a Dawn with 2 blockers, and just say there's no way that I'm going to die to anything. I will live against an unblockable swing. I will live against you trying to Dawn up your characters and going. There's just no way that I'm going to lose from that position. And so that is what we will do. In fact, you know what? We'll even swing into his Nami just so that he can't get any potential trigger out of his life. Honestly, this probably should have just gone at life, but whatever. We have an 11k in board. Even if he heals, almost no way that he's going to live through his next turn, and there's no way that I'm going to die on his next turn either. He does even counter to save the Nami. And so let's just see what he wants to do. He's got 4 swings actually, but with 2 blockers in play, I'm really not that concerned. Now, it is important to note, though, that since I only have 4 cards in hand, the unblockable could end up being potentially threatening if I were to give it 2k for the first 7k swing. That's why I gave the block to it instead, just because, if he goes for an unblockable 13 and I gave a 2k out of hand, I actually only have... Oh, you know what? I would have been fine anyway. Now looking back at this, because I go to 14 with a +3 and then +2/+2, and it costs 1 for his event. Okay, so I actually would have been fine even if I didn't do that, but that was my thinking in giving the blocker for that. But from here, even if he has the unblockable 8, we still have the 2Ks in hand, so instead he's going to hold up a Dawn, so he's got a counter event in hand. There's just no way that he's going to survive that with 4 cards, and I have this kind of a board. I confidently swing out my 11k La Beppo, but lo and behold, there's actually an Usopp event to make him a 7k for the rest of the turn, which means I do have to actually chew through his cards one at a time with these 7k swings, just because if I were to go a 16k swing and he had exactly 3 2ks and then a +4k event, which his last card was in fact a +4k, then I would actually lose in that scenario. He does counter out of it. In any event, though, we will win that one, and so here is the deck list that I ended up at. Again, I have been swapping out. You'll notice that I have 4 Milkies this time instead of 2 Milkies and 2 Dead Man's Games. I was putting those Dead Man's Games out for lots of different cards. I tried 2 Jewelry Bonnies, 2 Tashigi. I went back to 2 Perona for a brief moment, but I've settled on these two Milkies just to try to help me always have a low-cost Mink in play at the start of games so that I can tap down bodies, and it's been working out so far. Who knows what I'm going to end up with, but really those are like the two last flex slots that I'm not entirely sold on for any particular card, so feel free to play with whatever you like in those last two slots. Maybe you'll go for some extra 8 cost carrots if you find that you're not seeing it enough in the close, or maybe you just go for some extra 5 cost characters, whatever you feel like. Just to close things out, I did want to go over just some of the things that I did learn while I was playing against this starter deck Luffy deck. First of all, obviously, if you win the die roll, you go second, and that's the case for basically every single one of these yellow trigger decks, and it's because you don't necessarily want to swing into their leader as your first attack anyway. You would prefer to swing into one of their bodies, and Carrot has the ability obviously to tap down any of their early game bodies, so hopefully you'll be able to like tap down a Lilith and swing into it, and then establish a bunch of searchers to set up your board, get your Zoe in play, and then go into a clean game with a Trafalgar Law plus any other 5-drop, and just go from there so that you'll have a successful mid game. Additionally, I did find that most of the games I was only playing one La Beppo, and that was going to be on the turn before I went for game. I'm sure you saw it as well in those games that I played. I only had time to play one because this yellow Luffy deck does put out a surprising amount of pressure. Like, if you don't close the game out by turn 7, maybe turn 8, then they are going to. They have the unblockable attackers, they have tons of big bodies that they put into play, and they burn your life as on-play effects. So once you're at 0 life, they're gonna keep on chipping you down with 14k unblockables until you just run out of counter power. And so most of the time I only had time to play one La Beppo, especially if I had to go first. So feel free to pitch the extras and pass them up on searches once you have one in hand. Additionally, though, the triggers that come out from their life and their counter events they can play from hand are not nearly as powerful as I feel other yellow decks like Boas are, and so I do wish that I had just pushed for game in a lot of situations where I would have like 5 attackers and they only have 2 or 3 life left. I think that most of the time you're just going to be able to get there because there's not a ton of surprises that can happen. Additionally, though, the 1-cost Bonnies are very, very troublesome for this deck to get rid of. It's similar to the Boa deck. The Boa deck also doesn't have a ton of 1-drop searchers. It's really just the Liliths like in this deck, so you can clear those with your leader swing and then chain a bunch of Bonnies back to back to back, and they have to go ahead and clear those with their 5 or even 6k attacks, just because if they don't, those are extra cards every single turn you're going to be able to accumulate, which is going to buy you so much extra time to keep yourself in the game. And then, of course, this is one that was a hard lesson for me to learn. I lost 2 games, like you saw, just because of this. When you have 1 life left and they're going into their 9 or 10 Dawn turn, just leave a blocker up. It's going to save so much counter power out of your hand to be able to throw a blocker in the way of their 10k swing or even 11k swing, rather than having to pitch all of that counter power. So just leave a blocker up for those situations, and then hopefully you chain into a La Beppo on that following turn, and then the turn after that you go for game. But even if you do find yourself unable to go for game from that point, being at 0 life left with them having big bodies on the board is not the end of the world, because you can always throw your blockers in the way of any of their big body attacks. Only their leader can attack unblockably, and so as long as you can get out of a 14k leader swing, as long as you have blockers equal to the number of their attackers, you should be good to go. Because the best that they can do otherwise is something like Rayleigh pop one of your blockers, but then you've got the counter power to go to 15. You should be able to counter out of an extra 9k and then a 9k from the leader with that much counter power. So as long as you can get to 15, even if you have 0 life left, you should be okay. Especially if you have a La Beppo as well to play. But that is basically all of the things that I think will drastically improve your ability to combat this new starter deck yellow deck that's just been everywhere on the ladder. I swear, like I said, every third deck is just yellow Luffy, yellow Luffy, yellow Luffy. And maybe it'll fall out of favor, and maybe it'll get even more popular. We'll see. I mean, Luffy's a popular guy, and it looks like it's a pretty fun deck. I haven't tried it myself, but, you know, you get to play lots of triggers, you get to play lots of healing, lots of burn. People like burning other people's life, so I can see why it's so popular. But with all of that being said, I think that's going to do it for me. Be sure to like and subscribe if you did like what you see here. I am, of course, going to be posting a few more Carrot videos as I make my way to this Vegas Nationals trip. Just as preparation for it, you know, I'm going to be playing these practice games anyway. I may as well post some matchup discussion. And so if you liked this deep dive into this particular matchup, let me know in the comments below, or if you'd rather have a more hodgepodge of games, you know, some against Ace, some against Emu, some against this Luffy deck, some against Boa, let me know that as well. I can definitely do those instead, but expect like 2 to 3 more of these before Nationals. And so with that, though, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.